Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name's Excoundrel. For those of you that aren't returning subscribers and coming from the YouTube Up Next page or the home page, I do educational Wild Rift content, and so if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to drop a like, subscribe, and if you really enjoy it, you could drop a hit on that notification bell, as I publish a lot of educational Wild Rift content pretty much on a daily basis. So in this video, I will be talking about the process and the skills necessary to climb out of each individual rank in Wild Rift. I will be grouping together the skills necessary to go from Masters to Challenger because I think the skills are relatively similar. It's just a lot of time and practice and games that are involved in getting yourself from Masters to Challenger. But all of the skills that I talk about, you will need to build on those skills through each individual rank. So the skills that I talk about in Silver don't suddenly go away when you get to Gold. You need to continue to practice those skills and get better at them and build on them to ensure that you are continuing to climb. We're going to start right at the bottom of the ladder. Not many people are in Iron, okay? It's actually a very, very low population rank. At this point in the game, most people who are Iron are very unlikely to be able to play the game even at a basic mechanical level. They probably aren't particularly skilled at using the control setup. So really at Iron, it is basic mechanics that you need to learn. Learn how to last hit. Just make sure you're getting that last hit gold. You know, when the white bar flashes up on the minions, make sure you're using a basic attack on it. Get used to using the aim skill with the auto attacks and also aiming your abilities either using portrait lock or by using the manual lock system that you can use as well. Choose 2 to 3 champions that you want to focus on. Do not play every single champion in the game. At this point, it is much, much better and much more effective to climb by mastering a single champion or 2 or 3 champions that you feel really comfortable playing. Make sure you focus on the early game. Late games in Iron are going to be an absolute mess, like an absolute fiesta. So if you can focus on the early game and really snowball your advantage, then you can usually close games out before you get to just what is an absolute fiesta in the late game of the Iron rank. And make sure you're also choosing the correct runes and builds for your champions. Like, you don't want to be playing AD or Orianna. Like, just ensure you're either using the suggested builds, which are generally okay, or you're researching the builds through guide websites or content creators. I like to call Iron like the dad ranks. Like, Iron is usually the rank that your dad is because he can't really play the game properly and he just lost every single promotion game when he went into his series. So it's just a rank that requires some very basic mechanics in order to get out of it. But once you master the basic mechanics of the game, you will not be staying in Iron for very long. Next up we have Bronze, and Bronze is kind of like the meme rank of League of Legends. Like, most people call you Bronze if you're bad at the game. But what's really interesting about Bronze is it's actually not the most populated rank in League of Legends or Wild Rift. Silver is actually the most populated rank. And so Bronze is still one of those ranks that really requires you to hone those basic mechanics. Again, really focus on farming gold through last hits, making sure that you are effective at claiming the maximum amount of gold from the minions, because it's basically free gold on the map. Try not to flame or tilt. There is no such thing as my team are holding me back. If you are losing games consistently across 20 or 30 games, chances are it's not your team. Chances are you are doing, or you're not doing enough to ensure that you're winning the games consistently. So people who blame their teams are usually the people that are going to stay hard stuck in their rank. And obviously there are going to be games where your teams definitely are to blame, but obviously that's not going to be the case every single game that you play. Again, focus on 2 to 3 champions. At this point, any champion can win. I could literally go into Bronze and play with any champion, and if I just played that champion enough and became masterful enough with that particular champion, it's very likely that I could win more games than I lose. This is where you're developing your mindset for League of Legends. Again, as I said, don't blame your team. Yes, there'll be games that your team loses and you can do very little about, but there is always something that you could have done better. There's always something that you could have done to increase the odds at which, for which your team is going to come out on top. Also, again, my big advice for Bronze players is start to think about objectives. It's not something that you're going to be able to force consistently because a lot of your teams will not be on the same page as you. But if you have the opportunity to take towers and you can do so safely, I would thoroughly recommend that you start to focus on towers because they are standing gold on the map. They are completely free gold and they will allow you to snowball games more effectively. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Silver. Between Silver and Gold, this makes up the majority of the Wild Rift in League of Legends population in terms of ranked population numbers. At Silver, you are generally starting to develop your mechanics for the game. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of people in Silver have decent or okay mechanics. They are not all completely potato at the game. So one of the things that you need to do to really start to make yourself more effective at climbing in silver is expand your champion pool a little bit. Just make sure that you're bringing more champions into your comfort zone so that you have more options on the table, which is especially important when it comes to countering. Develop that mindset of, you know, my team is to blame, into focusing on yourself. It's not always your team's fault. Of course, there'll be times where it is, as I've said before, but really it's about what you can do. Learn to trade effectively. And what I mean by trade is when you are attacking someone in the lane, learn to take a fight where you're going to come out on a HP advantage. And that's going to be through just learning how when your champion is strong. And at silver, I wouldn't necessarily expect you to understand every single area that you can abuse in terms of trading, but just learn the basic mechanics of what your champion is supposed to do in a small trade. Like with Orianna, you throw your ball at someone, you use dissonance, you bring your ball back to shield you. It's a very, very basic combo of learning to trade with Orianna. Also, use more wards and sweepers. Wards especially on objectives and choke points and in the enemy jungle to make sure you have as much information as possible. And make sure you pick up a sweeper. Even myself, I forget to pick up sweepers too early into the game. It's one of the most underutilized trinkets at low elo especially. So pick up a sweeper ward, which is the red trinket, and make sure you're clearing vision of objectives and of choke points and denying enemy information. Information is one of the most important things that wins games, especially in the lower elos. So if you can deny enemy information, it's more likely that the low elo players are going to face check you and they're going to die for it. And lastly, think about where the enemy jungler could be. This is something that a lot of people get really angry that they get ganked and they just blame their jungler for not ganking. But at low elos especially, it's all about just understanding where the enemy jungler could be. Either through vision control in the enemy jungle, or if you're looking to be a bit more sort of heads up about it, thinking about where the enemy jungler is likely to be pathing right now. Did they start blue buff, go to red buff, and does that mean they're more likely to gank the Baron lane or the mid lane? Just think about where the enemy jungler could be and the pathing, and a lot of that comes through good early vision control, but also just having a think about where the usual starts for most junglers are. If you're against an Amumu, you know that he's very likely to start blue buff. So think about where he might go from that blue buff. Is he going to come to your lane? Is he going to go to the top side of the map or whatever? So just think about it that way. Alright, now that you're moving on to gold, you're actually in a really solid elo. Like, most players in gold have got relatively good mechanics. Most players in gold kind of understand how to play the champions that they're good with. They kind of understand the power spikes to an extent. They understand when they want to fight with them. They kind of understand how to trade with them. If you're in gold, you're actually a decent player. Don't get upset about being in gold. I know there's obviously many more tiers above that, but gold is still a good elo, and you should be proud of that. However, there are always things that you can do to improve. So in gold, start to think about the meta. Start to think about what's good in the current patch. It's not all about just playing whatever champion that you want, even though that can still work at the gold level. It is starting to think about which champions are the strongest in the current state of the game and what you can do to ensure that you are picking or becoming more familiar with those champions. Start to think about counter picks. Think about what you can pick in lane that you would be comfortable with and how it may counter the enemy. Or has the enemy picked something that counters you, and do you need to play a little safer around it? Focus objectives, especially after kills. If you get a good team fight, always try and convert that into towers or into a Baron or into a Dragon or any kind of major objective that is on the map right now. Remember, try to do it especially at gold after taking kills, because for the most part, if you try and force an objective and you haven't got any kind of man advantage on the map, gold is like one of those prime elos where people are just going to throw at a team fight around an objective because they haven't killed enough of the enemy team, or they haven't killed any of the enemy team and they've just randomly started the dragon without thinking about it. So just think about the state of the map and think about how many enemies you need to kill to ensure that you've got a strong team fight, even if they try and contest you at an objective. Don't overstay or overextend. So many times I've watched these gold games on my game where they get a really good team fight, but then they have like 10% HP and they just try and stay and take another objective, or try and stay and take another tower, or just constantly push and overstay and overextend. Especially split pushes in gold, they won't think about a vision, they'll just constantly push in the side lane, and when they get ganked, they'll wonder why. So try to think about where the enemy is, look at death timers especially, look at how your HP bars are. You know, are you healthy enough to take another team fight? Do you need to go back to base and reset? How much gold have you got? So just don't overstay and don't overextend. Another big tip that I've learned and actually has helped me a lot as I've been climbing: never surrender. Actually, it's one of those things that, yes, okay, some games are going to be absolutely impossible to come back from, but 1 in 10 you might find a comeback because the enemy constantly throws. And I've had several games over the course of the last few weeks where we looked down and out, and then the enemy just constantly throwed, and then we were able to get back into the game, even though our team was spamming surrender votes for absolutely ages. And again, build on those core mechanics. Learn to be more effective with target locking, target selection in team fights, aiming your skill shots. All of those things you need to continue to perfect, as they will help you as you start to climb higher through the ladder. Now we're going to talk about Platinum. In Platinum and above, you start to get players with egos. You'll get a lot of Platinum players who have Gold players on their team saying, ha, crappy Gold players losing my games. It happens in Emerald with Platinum players. It happens in Diamond with Emerald players. These are where the egos start to come through. Focus on yourself. Forget which rank you are. Forget about your teammates chatting rubbish in the chat. Just focus on yourself, focus on your mechanics, and focus on getting better. Play what you're good at. This is really, really important. If you got to Platinum through playing AD carry, don't randomly switch to jungle or randomly switch to mid. Focus on the things that you've done well up until this point. Focus on champions that you want to play, especially if those champions are currently meta. Don't try to play too many champions. Focus on, again, 3 to 4 in your respective role. And again, make sure at least 1 or 2 of them are champions that are currently strong in the meta right now. Also start to think about recall timers. What I mean by recall timers is think about when you are recalling to base and why it might be important to recall at a certain time. For instance, one of the most important and basic recall timers to work with is recalling at 4 minutes for Dragon. So a lot of players at high elos will make sure they are going back to base before 4 minutes before the Dragon spawn to get item upgrades or to pick up things like Corki package or whatever. So that's a very basic recall timer that you may want to implement in your Platinum games to ensure that you are strong enough to be able to take these neutral objectives and be the strongest team that you can be when it comes to that kind of position in the game. You're going to want to start to learn wave control basics. Freezing a wave outside your turret, shoving a wave into the enemy turret to ensure that you can take the turret safely, learning how to slow push in the side lanes by killing a few of the enemy minions, but not all of them, to allow your wave to stack up and push towards the enemy in a more sort of built-up fashion. You also want to have a bit more of an objective focus. You want to be especially focusing towers. Again, they are standing gold on the map. They're going to give your team a huge gold boost and hopefully get you towards more important item spikes. But also be aware that dragon fights are important. Obviously, Rift Herald fights are important as well. So you just want to be looking to be more objective focused and more objective minded, especially if you're in a duo or a trio queue. Learn when you can and can't trade in different matchups. You've got to understand particularly like how the intricacies of certain champion versus champion matchups work in the laning phase. Understand at what point in the game your champion is strong and when you want to look to trade in lane. Those are all things that you're going to want to develop through Platinum. Again, I can't really tell you every single champion in a video like this, but you can learn it through watching guides, watching high elo players, and just being more mindful about when you feel that your champion is strongest. It comes with a lot of experience as well. You'll learn the hard way by dying in matchups that you didn't think that you were going to die in, or you'll learn the easy way by getting good kills and thinking, wow, that worked out well for me. Maybe that is something that I should be looking to abuse as much as possible. So yes, just be more objective focused, but also, again, learn those micro elements of when you can and can't trade. Okay, now moving on to Emerald, and I think Emerald might be the worst rank in the game, just in terms of how good players think they are compared to how good they actually are. Again, there are big egos in Emerald. They will constantly flame Platinum players whilst also not being that good at the game themselves. Emerald is obviously a very impressive rank, and it is something you should definitely be proud of, but there is plenty of room to learn and grow. There is still Diamond, there is still Masters, Challenger, and beyond. So Emerald is often the rank where you'll find the players with the biggest egos. They're not Diamond, but they think that they're Diamond, or they think that their team are holding them back from Diamond. So just focus on yourself, focus on growing and improving as a player, and try to ignore all the noise in the actual game. Play what you're good at, like in Platinum, but also start to be expanding your champion roster to include more meta champions. Emerald is a rank where people will start to research tier lists. People will start to look at content creators and professional play and figure out what is really good in this stage of the game. So just be more aware of what is good in the meta right now based on the balance changes. And to be honest with you, start to include those in your champion pool. Try to play at least 2 roles competently. I think up until Emerald, it's perfectly fine to completely one-trick a role, but you will start to find if you can't get that role in Champion Select and you're absolutely useless at other roles, it will start to hold you and your team back overall. So just be way more intuitive with your role selection and really start to think about expanding your role to at least be competent. If you have to just play Malphite Baron lane every game and just sit into your turret and be useful in team fights, that is perfectly fine. Just have something else that you can play in another role, that if you don't get your role in Champion Select, you're not going to be a complete dead weight on the team. Try to understand the concept of trading objectives. This is something that not even Diamond players are particularly good at as of yet, but just start to think about, okay, we can't fight Dragon here because we died, or we can't fight Dragon here because we're not strong enough. Let's try and take a turret and at least get something out of this situation. So just be a little bit more mindful about what it is about to mean, what it means to trade objectives, and you can learn how to do that by looking at pro play. You can learn how to do that by looking at streams and high elo games, but you should really be looking to think about trading objectives as a core part of your team play or your individual play, especially if you're a Baron laner in Emerald. Also, try to understand how team comps work. Analyze your team comp in Champion Select. Do you have a lot of scaling champions that are good in the late game? Do you have a good team fight? Do you have a good split push? Again, these are things that you can learn by watching pro play. I do a lot of analysis like this on my channel. Just start to think about what your champions do and how effective they are at what they do, and at what points in the game they're strong. This will help you make better decisions about how to approach certain areas of the game, like do we want to fight for first dragon or not? Do we want to look to split push as much as possible? Do we actually want to team fight in the late game? Do we need to be more aggressive early to shut them down? Those are decisions that you'll get by analyzing your team comp and analyzing the enemy team comp and understanding the weaknesses and the strengths of both. At this point, Duo and Trio Q will be especially effective at helping you climb. I don't like to suggest this as a thing, but it is something that you should definitely be aware of. Duo and Trio Q, if you have a good Duo and Trio Q partner, it will help you climb more effectively in Emerald because you'll be able to be more coordinated. And in Emerald, it is more important to be coordinated around objectives because these are things that become more important at this level of the game. So yes, Duo and Trio Q will help you not only for the reason that you can hopefully ensure that people on your team are strong, but also you'll be more coordinated around objectives, and that is really important when it comes to this rank. Okay, let's look at Diamond. This is probably the biggest grind of a rank ever. Diamond takes a long time to get through just because the LP games can be rather slow, and so a lot of getting through Diamond is just about how much you play. So just play a lot of League of Legends. It doesn't matter how much, when you win or lose, you'll just get better by playing overall. And a lot of Diamond is just learning to be okay with losing, but also just knowing that you're going to have to play quite a lot to get through Diamond. And it will take you quite a while compared to some of the other ranks to grind through the absolute maximum levels of this particular rank. Group for objectives, trade for towers. You're starting to understand how to play around the important parts on the map. And again, either group for those dragons, group for Rift Herald, learn to roam effectively. As a support, especially understand when you may want to roam, especially when you are roaming away from your lane to try and impact either ganks or objectives on the other side of the map. So just be very mindful of the map state, when objectives are spawning, when you need to group for them, when you need to go for towers. These are things that you'll start to learn more and more through Diamond, and it becomes a much more important part of your kit. Communicate quite a lot. Diamond is important with communication. Now, you're not always going to be able to do it effectively. Typing on a phone can be a little bit of a nuisance, but overall, sorry, I'm just watching this Rakan clip. What the hell was that Kaiser doing? Anyway, just make sure that you're using pings to communicate thoroughly and make sure you're using them responsibly. Obviously, it's quite easy to troll people and tilt people by spam pinging them. That's never going to help you climb. Spam pinging in general or being flaming in chat is never going to help you be a better player or is going to help your teammates perform better. And of course, both of those things are more likely to make you lose than they are to make you win. So try not to talk in chat if you don't have to, and try to be honestly, as positive as possible, even if the situation is tough. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice when it comes to Diamond. Understand power spikes, both item power spikes and level power spikes. Understand when a particular champion is strong, like Jinx with 3 items, super strong. Your first item on Alistar makes you really strong in team fights, which is your Zeke's Herald. Your first item on Corki is pretty strong, then your 3 items on Corki is pretty strong. So Corki gets strong at level 9 and level 13. Just think about the item and power spike levels when it comes to your individual champions that you're playing. And these can be learned through guides, or they can be learned through videos, or talking to pro players, or watching streams. Just make sure you're learning as much as possible about the champions that you're playing. And now you want to really understand the intricacies of matchups and trading in lane. I'll give you an example. When I'm playing Alistar into Lulu, which is a tough matchup for Alistar unless you choose the right times to engage, I will never engage versus a Lulu when she has Polymorph up. If she's used her shield and Polymorph, I will look for a headbutt combo, because that might be a much more effective time for us to trade, because she's used some of her important abilities that really shut me down. So just be aware of the intricacies of trading in lane, and again, learning when the enemy has used skills that are important, learning the enemy cooldown on skills that you know you have a bit of more of a window to play around. These are important things that will help you get better at the game in Diamond, because they are the intricate parts, the more micro parts of the lane versus lane matchups. Okay, and in Master and above, this is from Master all the way through Grandmaster and Challenger. At this point, you're pretty damn good at the game. It is all going to be about champion and role mastery. So you just want to be really focusing on getting as good as you can in the role that you're maining at this point in time. You will find in Master and above, a lot of people are more flexible in Champion Select. If you've got a recognizable name, if people know you for being particularly good in a role, they'll be more willing to give you that role most of the time. So you'll find that often in Masters and above, you're more likely to pick up the role that you are practiced and are good at, more so than any other ELOs in the game. So it's just about practicing that role and mastery to be really strong at it, and getting better and better as you progress through the ranks. You're going to want to watch competitive play to understand rotations, how to set up for objectives and team fights. The setup is the most important thing. This is the skill that is lacking from Diamond, but is more important as you get towards Master and Challenger. Understand how to set up for objectives, which includes clearing vision, trying to make a pick, looking to brush camp, looking to split push effectively or go for a 1v1, drop a Rift Herald in a lane that's away from the objective that you want to start, you know, force someone back to base or force some important ultimates out before you actually go for a team fight. These are all important parts of setups that become really, really, really important as you get towards Master tier and above. One of the things that most Diamond players don't play around, and even Master players don't really play around very well, is split push in this game. It is quite difficult to do effectively, but it is something that, especially if you're a Baron laner playing things like Fiora and Camille, you should be really looking to establish when to split push and when to team fight. And that becomes a skill of just understanding the map state and kind of understanding where you are in the game. Learn and practice intricate mechanics, things like flash combos, flash belly slam, flash Yasuo knockups, all of the really important and intricate mechanics that can help you take opponents off guard. They become really important in Master tier and above, and so therefore you just got to be really, really good at like understanding how to do them effectively and become very, very fluid mechanically at the highest level. One of the things that I think will help a lot of people at Masters is reviewing your games and critiquing your play. You now have a complete arsenal of games, replays stored in your match history. Go in, review the games that you lost and figure out if it was something that you did, or figure out if there was something that you could have done better. Review how your lane went, review how your trades went. Were there points where you made a mistake? Why did you make a mistake? Think about all of the extra things that you can do to really up your gameplay by that 1 or 2%. And finally, have a game plan about how you intend to influence the outcome of the game, how you personally are going to influence the outcome of the game, and understand and try and think about how that game plan is relevant to the champion that you're playing. If you're playing Alistar, think about roaming for other kills, think about roaming for objectives, think about roaming for ganks. If you're playing Rakan, the same thing. If you're playing Lulu, just think about keeping your AD carry as safe as possible. If you're playing Lee Sin, early ganking or counter jungling, just have a game plan about how you intend to influence the outcome of a game and try and stick to it as much as physically possible. Of course, the big thing about getting to Masters and above is just having lots of experience in the game. Just being really focused, just making sure that you are not tilting as much as possible, making sure that you are playing a lot as well, because a lot of Master tier comes with practice, and just getting as practice as possible at the game of Wild Rift. And that will really help you expand your talent and become a very, very, very good player. Okay, that is everything. I hope all of these little bits of advice will help you climb through the ranks in Wild Rift. And if you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe and like the video. It would really mean a lot to me. I will see you soon.